Hello boys and girls, new lights and old. Recently I have been seeing this wild trend popping up in the Destiny 2 groups on social media where people are posting free tier 10 stat builds, also known as triple 100 builds. And although if you can build a really good one, it gives you a huge advantage in PvP, there are certain caveats and requirements when you attempt to make them. And they are mostly useful in PvP, as combat style mods in PvE are insanely strong and building around those make all the stats responsible for cooldowns irrelevant. And although 9 out of 10 builds are not really useful, on the other hand these are fun to make and require some knowledge on how to make them. And quadruple 100 stats are insanely rare, so if you have the required armor to achieve it, you have the right to flex. So here is some advice and a bit of guidance on how to get your triple 100 or quadruple 100 build. Mind you, if you just want to get a free tier 10 armor set without regards to what those 100 stats are, it might be counterproductive, and you need to masterwork some armor or change its affinity, maybe use an exotic you would never use otherwise, and have a set that is not viable except for learning a bit more about stats, mods and stasis shards, and of course garnering attention in a Destiny group on some social media platform. But sinister, I hear you ask, my fictitious contentious viewer. Surely higher stats are better than lower, and therefore a triple tier 10 armor set must be awesome, not to mention a quadruple tier 10 set. Well, my sweet naive child, not automatically. Yes, higher stats in some cases are better, but in some they make little to no difference whatsoever, and because high armor is rolled and limited in Destiny 2, if you run a triple 100 build you might have some serious disadvantages, and with a quadruple 100 you certainly will. Don't believe me? Let me show you. Buckle up buckaroos, because here we go full tilt nerd. Let's do some math first. So let's say you have some seriously good armor. You run endgame content, you know where to hunt for high 68 legendary and 71 base stat exotic rolls, as by the way that is the highest to my knowledge legendaries or exotics drop. Intrinsic bonus for older exotics press Shadowkeep is free, so only those can drop at 71. I myself don't have any armor above 67 for legendary and 69 for exotics, so any higher stat legendary, if exists, must be extremely rare. Your armor set at best will consist of 4 items with base levels around 66-67 and 1 class item which doesn't have any base stat. Let's say you are extremely lucky, the luckiest Destiny player ever touch a keyboard or hold a controller, and all your armor is at 67 base. Now 67 times 4 equals 268. If you'd masterwork all your items, you get an extra 12 times 5 which equals 60. That is 328 stat points you have at your disposal. Now, because this is not some RPG game where you can allocate a given pool of points on your stats, the way these points are distributed are up to our old friend RNGesus. But, as we established, you are the luckiest Destiny player alive, with RNGesus being your BFF, and he has your back, and he lets you distribute these 328 points as you wish. So he lets you get free tier 10 stats right out of the bat, and you are left with 28 points for your other stats, so you can make another tier 2 stat or 2 at tier 1 and left with 8 extra points. However, that leaves you with some problems. No matter how you spend your points, you will have 2 stat at tier 0 and 1 at 2, or 2 at tier 1 and 1 at 0. So while, let's say, mobility, resilience and discipline is at 100, your intellect, strength and recovery is nowhere. And this might be a valuable build for a hunter, it's not really good for a titan or a warlock class. All this is neither here or there, as RNGesus is not your friend. He is a dick, and your distribution is not going to be ideal at the least. For example, I keep getting rolls for my hunter with extremely high strength stats. Now granted, strength is not the worst stat for a hunter, but not necessarily the best, especially if you have 4 pieces, with each having over 20 points in strength and a measly 10 in mobility or recovery. Putting together the right combo for a free tier 10 would need some seriously good statistical skills, which I do not possess, but we have a webpage for this, thanks to Miyago, who made this awesome tool. Give the dude some love, and if you can afford it, support him, because this is a truly amazing site. So let's go to d2armorpicker.com and see where we are standing at. You need to log in with your gamer ID, and then you can see your gear for each class. As you can see, right now, there is no free tier 10 stat available for me. But there are certain mods that will give you stat bonuses. So you go down here and enable the 2 mods that give you 20 stat points for strength and mobility, radiant light and powerful friends respectively. There are also stasis shards that give you stat boosts, namely Whisper of Chains, Whisper of Conduction, Whisper of Durance, and Whisper of Shards. Right. Now let's see what's available. I have a variety of options to build triple tier 10 armor, so for me, job's done. I just choose the right one or the least bad, equip all the items with this button, go to my character, change my stasis aspects and shards if necessary, and can take a screenshot and show this to the world. However, as you can see, even a triple tier 10 build without stasis is hard to come by, as I have only 4 options for my hunter, 2 for my titan, and 1 for my warlock, and only one is actually even remotely viable, and all of the others are actually disadvantageous to that class. As the available builds are limited to certain tier 10 stats, those builds don't suit the character and take away points from stats that are necessary or considered better. And the quadruple tier 10 build is even harder. First, it requires insane luck and a lot of grinding high-end content. It's like going flawless in the freelance pool with 0.4 KDA. You need RNGesus to carry you. In fact, I have only seen 2, and albeit certainly, if you can build one, it gives you automatic bragging rights. They are statistically impossible to build without stasis, and certainly need huge sacrifices in a lot of departments. With all the mods in shards, you get an extra 90 points. You get 20 for mobility from powerful friends, 30 for strength from radiant light and whisper of durance, 20 resilience from whisper of conduction and shards, and 10 recovery and 10 intellect from whisper of chains and conduction respectively. This will make your stat point pool 418, and then you can equip 5 large stat mods which gives you 50 points, so you are working with 468 points altogether if you have an extremely good base stat armor set from the get-go. So after some quick mental arithmetic, you need a set with 3 out of these 5 stats and enough points for a 4th to supplement it with the 50 points by the large stat mods. 80 mobility, 80 resilience, 90 recovery, 90 intellect and 70 strength without any mods or shards. The problem is, as we established, you have 328 points, and even in that best case scenario, which is you have 80 mobility, 80 resilience, 70 strength, you are looking at 230 points. So you are left with 98 points, and from that 98 points you need at least 40 to be in either recovery or intellect or 50 in discipline. And if you have any other distribution, let's say 80 resilience, 90 recovery and 90 intellect, then you are left with a measly 68 points to either have 20 in strength or 30 in mobility or again 50 in discipline. Now obviously you could have say 70 mobility, 70 resilience, 60 strength and 70 intellect, and then just add large stat mods to the relevant stats or any of the combinations. Yet there is another problem. You will lose numbers here and there. So even if let's say you have 84 mobility, 87 resilience and 76 strength, the same rules apply. Only now you are left instead of 98 points with only 81. But you still need to have half of that in recovery or intellect. So if you have 36 in intellect and 38 in recovery and only 7 in discipline, you are still fucked. Now obviously the best way would be to simply wait until the stars align and you get an armor set that fits these aspects. However, this wouldn't be much of a video if I wouldn't give you some really fucked up albeit valid advice. So there is no guarantee that you will ever get 4 armor pieces that actually make a quadruple tier 10 possible or even a very triple tier 10. I'm no statistician, but intuitively you can tell by just looking at the numbers that the probability of getting that perfect distribution is low as fuck. There are 2 guaranteed ways of getting high stat armor. One is by farming Pit of Heresy's main boss, and the other is by farming Season of the Splicer armor walls at the Recaster. Pit will give you something along the lines of 65-67ish, while Season of the Splicer rarely gives you higher than 60-63, but it's far easier and can be rolled for certain stats, and besides, good luck finding even another player who will struggle through Pit for the chance of 1 armor piece, and then after making a checkpoint at the boss, do the boss fight again on the other characters week after week. You can do it on your free characters for loot, and then that's it. Your other runs don't give you fuck all. Now at the recaster you could roll for 3 pieces of armor from Season of the Splicer each week, provided you have enough decrypted data. But you are still at the mercy of our old nemesis RNGesus, and there is no real scientific method, as you can't roll for specific armor pieces. Nevertheless, whatever you roll for, these pieces come reliably with a very high stat with a very uneven distribution. You will have to run 9 Splicer events to farm enough decrypted data for 3 pops. It helps if you have a Titan and can sword fly, because the Labyrinth expunge mission can be done in 5 minutes if you fly across the map, and at this point there are always 5 corrupted keycards at everyone's inventory, so doing this is more time efficient than doing any other Splicer activity. Or if you can't or don't have a Titan, then doing the override missions will give you 55 decrypted data to get an armor after every 3rd run. So this is what you do. You get 150 decrypted data, then you roll for an armor with a stat of your choosing. You equip the corresponding mod, whatever you want to roll for, in the 3rd slot of your ghost, and then choose the same engram at the recaster. You could also roll for 2 specific stats and get something with high recovery and high resilience or whatever, but I recommend the former, as it will guaranteed give you something with at least 20 points in the stat you rolled for, while the other guarantees only 10, so you could still get a scuffed roll with some really bad distribution. Then you go and check out the D2 armor picker, and if it fits, then all good. If not, you do this shit over and over again, week after week. Now, as I said, this is not practical if the stats you get are not what's beneficial for your character and playstyle. Obviously, you could still make this work, but with a price, and how steep that price is affects the practicality of these builds. For starters, you almost certainly need to equip both Radiant Light and Powerful Friends, and those would only benefit your stats in PvP, and you will have to use 2 Arc armor pieces. Because of how armor elemental affinity works in general, this will limit your options, as for example, perpetuation only goes into void class items, and if you use an arc affinity class item and slot your Radiant Light or Powerful Friends into that, the only mode you could use is outreach, which will give you some melee energy whenever you use your class ability, which could be great if you are using a melee based build, but impractical if you just want a shorter cooldown on your class ability. It's not a big deal, but all these minor things add up. What I'm saying is that there are triple 100 stats that are truly beneficial and amazing, but even those might limit you to a certain degree and maybe to a certain playstyle. And if that playstyle matches your preferred playstyle, then it's awesome, but if it doesn't, you shoot yourself in the leg by sacrificing valuable energy to mods that only give you stat boosts, perhaps for abilities that are not even advantageous. For example, in PvP, mobility is only useful for a hunter, and the most important stat is recovery by far for all classes, and you want to equip mods that enable quick swapping, like weapon dexterity and targeting mods, and maybe special ammo scavengers. And perhaps mods that feed your ability recharge rates, like utility kickstart, perpetuation, absolution, impact induction. Your ammo is limited to using 50 energy, and if you run a hand cannon shotty or hand cannon sniper combo, which is still considered a meta, hand cannon targeting alone, for example, will take up 5 energy, and if you run sniper targeting too, then that is all you can put in your helmet, meaning that instead of 5 large stat mods, you could only use 4. In essence, no matter how you build, you will have to sacrifice something, and getting 100 stat points in a character stat just for the sake of having a triple 100 build will hinder you. Obviously, the higher the stats the better. However, using combat style mods and stasis fragments to achieve some arbitrary triple 10 because that is the only available build, or even a quadruple tier 10 stat, will be a fun project, and maybe you learn some modding meanwhile, but won't do you much good in practice if those stats are not the right ones in truly high-end PvE or PvP. You could certainly find the triple 100 stat build that is truly great and enhances your playstyle, but you need to be aware what you are sacrificing and what you gain when building for these. Well, that's all folks for the scope of this video. Like it if you like, subscribe if you want. I will go into more details and show some valid builds for all 3 classes with triple 100 stats next.